People always ask how I balance my family life with 400 shows a year. I'm just doing what I love with the people I love. It's my magic life.
I like Wes Iseli. I like everything about him.
All right, guys, we are back. And this week we have a legend in magic. This dude, I'm telling you, this is the second time we've had this guy on. And I said during the first podcast something to the effect of, you see people do tricks all the time. Magicians do tricks. This guy does magic. I can't think of a better thing to say about somebody. Everybody, it's Michael Kaminskas. What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a little chilly where I'm at right now. I'm actually in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania right now at the family lake house, and we've got about 17 inches of snow on the ground. So it's a little cold at the moment, but far cry from Maryland where it's dry roads and don't have to worry about that stuff.
I don't know how dry it is in Maryland. We're in Virginia, and I shoveled ice today for how many hours? 2?
I don't know.
And I had to undo the RV and undo the sidewalks just of ice, and my back is already starting to be sore. So I don't know what it's like in Maryland, but I imagine snow on the ground.
So Southern Storm. My son's at Coastal Carolina University. He plays lacrosse down there, and they had 6 inches of snow down there. So I had pictures of them playing paintball in their lacrosse jerseys and stuff in the snow. So that was kind of fun.
Oh, the snow that didn't come hit us. We were supposed to get like 1 or 2 inches, and then we got nothing. It all was further south in North Carolina.
Oh,
my cousin's down there, and she's like so happy because apparently she looks weird and she loves the snow, and she got like 7 inches, and she was thrilled.
No, I got cabin fever. I got cabin fever really bad right now, Mike.
Dude, I'm with you. I want to go outside and do stuff, and this weather's just not allowing for that.
It's not allowing shows. All my shows have been canceled. I teach magic classes; they're all canceled. My shows have been canceled because parking lots haven't been done. Schools are closed. I have a show cross my fingers this weekend.
We will.
It got canceled 2 weeks ago.
Right.
But they're calling for 3 inches tonight, Mike. I don't know. I have close up tomorrow.
No. Thursday. We have a show on Thursday and Friday, and then hopefully our big show.
The problem is, as soon as the good days, and everybody wants to rebook for then. So, and you can't do everything at the same time because, it's like you had it all planned out, and then the snow hits, and then when you get this long-term cold and they delay schools for 2 hours and you can't get in there, and then they don't want to hold the assembly because they're getting in late, and then they back it up. It's a nightmare. I was talking with another magician yesterday about that, and he's had his school shows postponed and canceled, and he did it yesterday for kindergarten through 8th grade, and I was like, well, that's a wide range of kids to perform for. It's like, that's a tough show.
That's all right. I don't care. I'll do it. If there's eyeballs, I'll perform for them.
Yeah.
No, mine's an illusion show as a school fundraiser Saturday. So they might not have to shovel the snow for the weekend. They don't care. Right. Once the school buses are gone, I don't know what's going to happen. This might be the second time it's canceled. Anyway, I have a crazy question for you. Take it as with a grain of salt. Were you into Bitcoin at some point? Were you pitching Bitcoin? Were you selling Bitcoin?
Never in my life. That is the furthest thing that I would ever do. And I'm glad you asked me that because Facebook apparently doesn't believe me that I've never sold Bitcoin. I've contacted them. I've had other people contact them. They wouldn't let me say, hey, this isn't me. Take my stuff down. I had my account stolen by somebody, and I can't, as the owner, and it's me, and I have a driver's license and all the stuff to prove it. Getting in touch with Meta or however they say their company name, it's impossible. They have no phone numbers, they have no email. So unless they contact you, there's no way to get in touch with them. So you can put in all the things and go through and I have tried and tried and tried. So eventually I just gave up and tried to let people know. Because I had people that were ordering stuff from me and then they were paying this other person who wasn't me. And so I ended up for a while, I was actually just sending them the product, and I ate a lot of money doing it that way. But eventually I had to put a stop to it and say, hey, I'm sorry, that's not me. If you went through my, my actual website, and placed the orders rather than, chat with me on Facebook Messenger, you would have known that, this is how, because I don't do business that way, so, it was it, yeah, but that was stolen years ago, and I still don't have it. So, if you see Kaminskas Michael, I think it is, and there's a picture maybe of me with like a motorcycle helmet or something on, that used to be my account long, long time ago, but then it got stolen. I don't even know how many years ago it has been now, because I lost track of time since COVID hit, honestly. And so that's, yeah, so I have another account. So yeah, if you really want me, it's under Mike Kaminskas. So
Perfect. All right.
that's where you'll find it.
Well, that's where I got confused because I love you and you were selling Bitcoin. I'm like, well, he was doing good with Magic, but maybe he's really into Bitcoin. Mike, I don't know anything about Bitcoin. Why don't you come on the podcast and do Bitcoin? And you never answered me.
Yeah, because I don't know anything about Bitcoin, and I really don't. I don't know anything, and unless I can hold it, that I'm not somebody who I still like the old cash system, it's and now that we don't have pennies anymore, they're going away, it's crazy. But the world's ever evolving, and with AI and technology and everything else, I mean, who knows where we'll be. And 10 years ago, I mean, think we had none of this stuff. We weren't talking over the phone. Zoom wasn't a thing. All these things weren't around, so the world changes, and we just have to adapt with it. I look at my parents, in their generation, they've seen so much from having no TV to black and white TV to a man on the moon to cars, and that go from gas to electric, and I mean in computers and cell phones, and the fact that we're not having a cord stuck in the wall. I mean, it's absolutely crazy, how fast technology has gone. And sometimes I think that can be a bad thing. Sometimes we rush through things before we really evaluate the detriment that it's going to have on everybody. But I don't talk really about political things or religion. Those are my two questions that I'm off base with. Just because if you're in my house, what's one thing, but anything else you want to ask, feel free. I'm happy to help you.
Well, I'm with you on the whole Facebook thing, man. I just talked to him again today. If you're verified and pay them $15 a month, $30 a month, they'll talk to you, but they can't do anything. I'm going through the same thing. They deleted my Facebook account the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and said I was a bot, but I'm verified. Well, now it needs to be manually done. So computers can't do it. It has to be manually done. But we just offloaded 15,000 employees. So we're backlogged a lot. So just deal with it. I'm like, I use it for business, dude.
Right.
I use it for business.
Well, that's what people don't understand. When I have friends that request, my access to my Facebook, and honestly, I don't even accept it. And I tell them, I send them a message and I say, I use my Facebook, for my magic friends and my magic family. That's really what it's for. I have a couple people on there, like, my parents or whatever, but my kids aren't even on my Facebook. I tell them no. I say, you want to see me, go to Instagram. That's fine. But I used it as a business tool, and especially, once COVID hit, it became even more important that you had that business tool to have access to and be able to use. So and also it fit the demographics for me that I was looking for. Anybody that's of a certain age, my kids and younger, they don't go to Facebook. They're not on Facebook. That's for old people. I hate to say it, but that's the way they view it. They have the account, they just don't go into it. It's kind of like my MySpace account. I had it, but I don't even know what that was.
Well, I just listened to our first podcast, season 2, episode 2, and I just smiled the whole time. I had so much fun with you last time. We were talking about at the end of the podcast, you riding your Harley. And then right after that episode, you were in a bad wreck.
Yeah.
What happened?
I was in a bad accident, and I was up here in the mountains riding my bike. We've got a family lake house up here that I go to quite often. Just to it's nice to get away, and it's beautiful, and especially riding in the summertime with the trees and the mountains and everything is gorgeous. And I was coming back and I was on a back road, which they're all back roads up here. It's, like 25 minutes to get to a gas station here. So, I'm driving through and mama bear and her cub, were coming out across the road in front of me. And by the time I noticed them, I had two options. I either hit the cub and, or, put my bike down. So I put my bike down and I ended up, they ran off into the woods. None of them were hurt, but I broke my collarbone, three ribs, my left arm, and I sat in a chair for 3.5 months recovering. So yeah, it was a long time.
Wow. Wow.
Goodness.
Well, let's rip this Band-Aid off. What's the newest thing that happened to you with your heart?
Let's see, September of 24. So, not too long ago. I'm still recovering, but at the beginning of September or the beginning of 2024, I did a lecture tour, and I did the Southern lecture tour, and it was down in Florida through, Georgia and across and up Myrtle Beach and over to Alabama and Texas, and I think I even ended up in Colorado. I'm not sure, but after I got done the tour, I was super, super exhausted, and I was just really running on empty. I had no steam, no nothing, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And, so I just took it as, okay, it's pretty grueling. I haven't done anything in a long time. I finally got back out in the saddle and, doing things and trying to make things happen. And, I was just like, all right, well, I'm just going to take it easy, for a little while after I did the lecture tour. So, I just hung out for, a month or two. And then my cousin, who happens to be a doctor, was in town. And she said, let me listen to your, you don't, I don't know. She's like, you're sweating all the time. You don't sound good. So she, listened to my lungs and everything. She's like, oh, you've got double pneumonia, dude. No wonder you have a hard time breathing. She's like,
Oh.
you shouldn't even be standing. And you did like the lecture tour and all this stuff like this. And I was like, yeah, I just assumed that it was, just me being out of shape, overweight, and traveling, driving 5 hours a day and doing the tour lecture and driving another five. I mean, because it's a pretty grueling schedule, And then of course, every stop, people are like, hey, let's go out for dinner or let's do this or whatever. So I mean, there's no, you really don't have any time, and you don't want any time, because that's what makes it profitable, is when you can keep going back to back to back. I don't want to do one and then sit around for 4 days, have to pay for a hotel for 4 days and not make any income. So I want them, every single day when I do a tour. And so I got back and I just was totally wiped out. And so, I got on some meds. I went to the doctor, they prescribed some, meds for me, and still, even after that, I started to feel better, but I never felt really good. I was like, I'll get through it, no problem. Fast forward another month or so, and I was, refinishing a rowboat that, we had outside and everything, and I'm out there, grinding the aluminum rowboat down so I can repaint it and everything. And I mean, it's hot and I'm sweating like crazy. And my aunt said to me, she's like, you don't really look really good. I said, oh, I'm just, winded or whatever. So I didn't think anything of it. Then I was just having a really hard time. It just kept getting worse and worse. And I couldn't, I couldn't go up a flight of steps without stopping and having to, to brake. And it was one of those things where I was just totally exhausted, totally worn out. And, other than that, I was like, okay, well, I don't feel horrible other than I have no energy. And so I called my cousin, she's like, you should just go into the emergency room, have them check you out or whatever. So I was like, drove to the emergency room. I sat in the parking lot, decided, yeah, there's sicker people than me, and then I left and I went back, went home. About a week later, I said, I really should go back in. So I did the same thing. Well, this went on 3 times, where I would drive to the hospital, sit in the emergency room parking lot and not go in. So about a month after the first time that I did it, I was actually feeling better at that point a little bit than I had been. But I went in and I said, look, it's probably nothing. I don't know what, but I just need to get checked out because I just don't have any energy or whatever. So they did all the tests and stuff, and the doctors came and said, "You're not going anywhere." And I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "Well, you have heart failure." I said, "Your heart's only functioning at 15%. It's like you're not walking out the door today. Got news for you." So I spent a week or so in the hospital, did every test known to man, figured out what meds to get on for heart failure, because heart failure is such an odd disease, in terms of it's not like a blockage or something that you can fix with surgery. Heart failure is a function of your heart. It has nothing to do with, oh, you've got a blockage and you need to put a stent in or something like that. So it's a little bit more scary in that respect to me, because you can't just do that. It's treated mostly through medicine and exercise and diet. So, and me being overweight at the time, didn't help or whatever. But so I went in, and so they put me on, water pills, and I lost like 26 pounds in water weight, just on the water pills in the hospital. And I immediately started feeling 1,000% better. So they put me on that, and that was all well and good, but it's a slow recovery. It's nothing that you can come out of quickly, because they have to titrate your medicines. I started when I left the hospital, I was taking like 17 pills or something. I don't even remember. Now I'm down to, I don't know. I'm looking at my pills right now. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 9. So I'm down to like 9 a day now, which is so much better.
Wow.
But it's just trying to deal with it and the effects from the medicine, as well as dealing with the heart failure and getting your heart stronger. So latest update is, yes, my heart is getting stronger. So I'm up to, at 30 to 40% now, which is way stronger than it was before. I'm not in that critical zone anymore, but as a performer and somebody going out and doing magic, it's affected me other ways, in the fact that I lose feeling in my fingers and my hands and my toes and my legs. So I have issues with that, where one day I'll feel fine, and I don't know when it's going to hit, but literally it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I could be, washing dishes and my fingers will go numb, or, but as a close-up sleight of hand, kind of performer, you can see how that would be not advantageous for my career. So it
Devastating.
makes it very difficult to try and do. So I try and get, the practicing in when I can and when I feel good. And like I said, and on the whole, I am feeling a lot better, but I certainly haven't been able to do anything, and I haven't been able to go and perform any shows, since, September of 2024. So it's been a long time, so the only revenue that I'm making right now to stay afloat and pay my bills is literally what I do through selling of my magic. So it's a very, and if anybody has ever tried to sell magic full time, I mean, I've sold magic in a magic shop as a demonstrator. I sell my own stuff. And it's always been an addition, right? It's not the main thing. It's always been an additional, form of income to come through. So you can see how it can be quite trying, because I don't know, how much money I'm going to have when I put a new release out. I don't know how many people are going to buy it. I don't know how many people are going to do what they can do. So my friends, Steve and Jen Myers, who and Steve Myers Magic, she did a GoFundMe for me. And thankfully, through the grace of everybody, uh, excuse me. Wow.
Take
It's
your
okay.
time, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a lot.
you are loved, dude. The whole magic community. I remember seeing the GoFundMe. Yeah. I mean, everybody loves you, dude.
So it's been tough, but um I keep a positive outlook, and I know my friend Eric Jones is going through a very similar thing that I had, and I pray for him as well. And my sister had heart failure about 10 years before I had it. So it's certainly something that she, like mine and hers, they don't know what caused it, where it came from. It's not something that just kind of was there. There's no family history of it other than my sister. She was like the first one in our whole family to even have, heart failure. And then like I came down with it after her. So, um,
All right. Well, I have a nutritionist sitting beside me. How's your diet now?
well, a lot better, so I can tell you. So it's still not great, but for me, I'm a cheesesteak and fry guy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm from Philly, so I'm not. I'm used to eating that real good healthy stuff. But now it's in my refrigerator right now. I got a lot of salads and some protein, some chicken. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of goodies, and it's a whole different world for me. In terms of eating and quantities that I'm eating and everything else. So because they all go hand in hand. I mean, it's like a good magic trick. You need all the parts to make it come together. So
Yeah. That's why I was saying diet. I got the expert right here. She just got her master's in nutrition in December.
Yeah.
So
hey,
moderation,
Yeah.
man. You can
Yeah.
have that cheesesteak, just not every day.
Right.
congratulations. Oh, I do. Trust me. That's true. There's I'd rather not be here than not eat a cheesesteak.
No, come on.
It's not the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity,
He's got me teary-eyed. Hold on.
and shoot me down if you don't want to answer, but are they so you're at like 30-40%? Do they have a goal to get you to, or they're just kind of, let's see how good we can get it? Or
I mean, they said it won't go back to 100%, back to normal. That's not going to happen, but
right.
it'll get to a point where you can function without like my sister. She's doing great, and honestly, she went into it a lot better than I did. She was super healthy and going through, and she had all half of that equation already. She didn't have to worry about that. For me, that was a whole big, snowball and part of the game that was totally different because as I was younger, I never had a problem, going to the gym or, losing weight in 2 seconds or whatever, but as I got older, that was, something that, less and less of it. And part of it is injuries and, some of it's other stuff. And, sometimes it feels like, you're just getting beaten up, like right now, I just went to the orthopedic, he told me put a shot cortisone in my shoulder. He says, well, because I think you tore your rotator cuff, so we're going to have to schedule an MRI for you. So that's what I'm going through. That's my latest, medical issue. Yeah, the other stuff is still going to be there. We're working on it. I'm hoping to get back out and get to be performing again. I've done a couple little things here and there for some families and friends at weddings and stuff like that. But as far as performing and doing getting paid and doing the jobs and shows that I was doing, I mean, I was spending 6 and 7 months on the West Coast, performing out there all the time. And, I mean, I checked before COVID, like the year before, I did like 26 flights or something like that year or something, it was like, and then all of a sudden, it just like everything crashed. But friendships remain, so that's good.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. How was your energy when you did the weddings? Were you just slower than normal, or did you feel good?
When you get amped up to it, how performing is. I mean, it was super good, but it was a short stint. It wasn't. I didn't do anything. As my sister's daughter got married, and they had this beautiful wedding, and so I just did some strolling for some of the guests. It wasn't like I was, but it was the ability to perform and interact and get to see the joy and the smiles and the laughter. That was worth it.
Dude, it makes you feel good. That's a drug in itself. It really truly is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I tell her with being snowbound and cabin fever, I'm antsy. You need it.
No, that's for sure. I mean, you sit in a place and you can't do anything. I mean, I've got books that I've been writing, and I think the last time I talked to you, I always told you I was writing a book, and it's almost finished. That's the good thing, sitting around not doing a whole lot. We did get a lot of headway on that, and then I had an idea about a month ago for a different book, so I started writing that one. So, but that's the problem. Like I've got so many different things, and it's like you're trying to get the stuff down on paper before it leaves here, because that's the thing. You have to strike while the iron's hot, and you'll go months and months and not be able to write. So when writers talk about they've got writer's block and it doesn't come to them, I know what they're talking about. I truly do. I get that. And you can sit there and you could want to write about it, but until you're in that moment and that groove. I mean, I stayed up for 2.5 straight days writing, just because, I just was like, oh my goodness, I would take a few naps here and there, but I really truly never slept. I never made it to my bed. I would sit on the couch, lay down for an hour or two, and then get back to writing. So I'm excited for those because, that's something that I truly like to do is to share my magic. And I never know what media form is going to be available in the future, i.e. DVDs, VHS, downloadable stuff, but the printed page is always going to be there. So that's not going anywhere. So if it's down on paper, provided there's no fires or anything, to get the books destroyed, they will be around. So that's something that I truly do like, having, and having, that record that people can look back, even if they've never met me, they could say, oh, hey, people come up at a convention, they're like, Mike, I've read your book, or, I got that when I hate to say it, 20 some years ago. And I was just like, yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. It's like when I wrote that book that most of them are talking about, which is Miracle Material, I think I was 19 years old.
Wow.
So that was a long, long time ago.
So do you still have books on your website?
I don't really, well, I have one on there right now, which is seemingly impromptu, which is all impromptu magic.
Got it.
So that one's good. And volume two is actually being worked on. That's one of the books that I'm working on right now. So we'll have a second one of those coming out. And I actually thought if I ever put them together to make one book out of them, rather than just call the whole book seemingly impromptu, I'd kind of do it like kind of a Chris Kenner thing with his totally out of control, have half of it flipped one way and half the other way. I thought that was a genius idea. So if he gives me permission, I wouldn't do anything like that without asking him. But that crediting in the magic world, it's unfortunately few and far between these days, and I try really hard to credit everything and my inspirations and sources. The problem is we live in such a technological world that so many things are created across the globe that we don't know about, and they get to us. Before, in a year, maybe there was a dozen magic books that were produced in the entire year. Today there's probably, I don't know, 1,000 or 1,500 or more magic books that are produced every year. So because there's self-publishing, they can create a book now and go in and they don't even have to have it handy. They can do print on demand, and it's not even printed until somebody orders the book. Amazon will do all the fulfillment. They don't even see the books. They don't even they don't have to touch them or anything. Back when I was dealing with it, you had to find a publisher. You had to get them to sign you on. They had to commit to, printing 5,000 copies of your book, which is a lot, especially, it's a major investment, not knowing how well it's going to sell. So there was a lot of ifs, and
It's not for everybody, for the
it's,
magic community. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So
yeah.
it's
And a lot of people don't like books in the magic community. I know a lot of people that are like, it's like, you must be one of those old guys because you like magic books. You like to read. I said, well, technically, I don't like to read. I like to read magic books. There's a big difference. I rarely will sit down and read a novel of any sort.
well. Another idea is that Svengali principle that Penn and Teller did in their book. If you remember that, can't remember which one, but they had the you read the book. If a layman picked up the book, it looked like the script to their movie Invisible Thread.
Right.
You read the book, it would look like that. So you could do that on art. You flip it backwards, it would be volume 2. Flip it forwards, it'd be volume 1. However, yeah, different ways you could do that. That's still unique and fun.
Yeah, it's just something fun and different. You could do it like a coloring book or whatever. Yeah, there's all sorts of ways. But yeah, so that's unfortunately the how's Mike's health question in a nutshell. So
Nice health now complete. We're done with that.
I'm done with that. I'm here. I'm happy to be here, and just ready to move on to the next chapter.
Dude, that's awesome. So do you have anything coming up? Are you booking anything? Or you just can't right now? You just health? Are you focused on health and writing?
Nope. I just honestly, I really don't feel like I can book stuff because I don't want to book something not knowing if I'll be able to do it, to
Yeah.
perform and do it. The things that I, would contemplate doing, or, some events maybe with some friends or whatever, because if I wasn't feeling great, I could still maybe, do 10, 15 minutes or whatever, but, I wouldn't be able to, stand out there and do a 45 to 70-minute show or 3 hours of strolling magic for a group. That just right now to me, I would like to think that I'm right there, but it's still a ways off. I just want to get to where everything is. The thing, one of the places that I totally miss performing at is the Magic Castle. I love the Magic Castle, especially the close-up gallery, but the entire place in and of itself. And the last time I performed there was right after COVID. It was so, I can remember I was performing and the entire audience was wearing masks, so it was joyful to be there, because it was right after such a miserable time and, the whole, US's life. So it was the world actually, but not just us, but it was a terrible time, that we were just coming out of. People weren't sure if they should go out or stay in, what was going on. Every performer dealt with it, I mean, I think it was the first time ever performers, that, work for themselves were able to collect, unemployment because, it's normally that's a no-go. But if you can prove that you had income and stuff coming up, then, you were able to, make some money. And so luckily, that helped out a little bit and helped us get through the COVID. But, it was difficult, and because a lot of performers, like I booked stuff in advance, where a lot of performers don't do that, where they're just, waiting for the phone to ring, do a birthday party, do this, do whatever. So, and they don't have contracts and they don't have things that they can show to the government and say, hey, this is why I need you to give me money, because I'm losing all this, this is my income, it's my livelihood. And as an entertainer, it's a very, very tough, road to haul when you look at it and you're like, just, but when people, and you probably get this, I know every entertainer does, it's like you tell them, oh, you're a magician. Well, what else do you do, or whatever. And it's like, no, that's what I do, it's like, check my taxes. That's what it says, I'm not lying to you. That's what I do. But
It was brutal. I won Fool Us, and on the plane ride home, we lost like 143 shows.
Yeah.
My phone and email were just blown up. It was
a mess.
awful. They canceled the whole summer.
Yeah.
So it was brutal, man. It was brutal. Mm-hmm. So I have a whole pile of products of yours. Is this all on your website?
Yeah, they're all up there. I mean, so now, unfortunately, a lot of them, I don't know what you're looking at, but if you go there, I mean, I know you go there, but people always say, "Hey, Mike, your stuff's always out of stock or it's not there." Well, let me tell you, this is it. I'm a one-man show, so it takes a while to get stuff back in because if I make one item. Then there's I just checked the other day and I actually have like 96 items on my website. That's a lot of stuff to carry. Now, a lot of them are just continued, they won't be made again. And so I'm thinking about I leave them on the website just so people can see for historical purposes, especially like with the cups and stuff like that, because it has, data about them. It has dimensions. It has, all the history and everything. So people that are collectors and stuff like that, they like to go back and they can get that information and they can still look at it. So, but when I started that, it was really just to sell, my high-end stuff, it's to sell my cups, the cups and balls and my chop cups, some wands. And that was basically the entire website. Since COVID hit and, we couldn't get ships to cross the sea with any materials. Building materials went through the roof, as everybody knows that goes to Lowe's and tries to buy even a 2x4, which used to be $1, is now, like $4.95 or $5. I don't even know what it is, but basically anything in the building trade quadrupled in price. And metals especially went up even higher than that. And you would think that once all the trade came back and the ships were sailing and stuff would go, that the prices would go back down. No, no, no. No. Prices stay up, right? So because these people got used to saying, oh, we can get this for this. Why would we drop the price if people are willing to pay this higher price? So, they make it on the backside, but unfortunately, the middlemen and the consumers are the ones who get hurt by it. We see it every day. We go in this stuff. People are talking about, oh, it's this if you pay cash, and it's 3 or 4% more if you use a credit card or whatever. I was just like, that's ridiculous. I mean, all those expenses for using a credit card and all that stuff, and all, you get write-offs and you can do all that stuff. And I just think it's really cheap of businesses and poor to be asking for that 3 and 4%, or worse yet, ask for a tip at the register when I'm, paying at Chipotle that, hey, I just, you made my sandwich and the person's ringing it up and now they want a tip. I'm like, you're getting paid an hourly wage. What do you need a tip for? You didn't serve me, I mean, you didn't come to my table, and you're not making $2.85 an hour like a server is. They rely upon their tips. So yeah, I'm going to give them 20%, but the person that's standing behind the counter that's getting paid $12 to $15 to $18 an hour, no, what do they need a tip for? And they don't even say, they say, oh, there's a question for you to answer. I love that. It's like, there's a question for you to answer. Sometimes I go, oh, my eyes are dilated. Can you read it to me? Because I can't read it. Because I want to hear him say it.
Wow. Yeah, let's sit down a cup of coffee, but you got to tip me 20. Yeah. So, were you turning your own wood wands, or did you have somebody doing that for you?
Well, I'm looking at my wood lathe right now.
Okay. But you weren't making the cups. Were you making cups?
I've made cups, but no, my cups are made by other places. Actually, the company that makes cups for Tiffany Jewelers, I have 2 different people that make cups for me, and the one is, like I said, a company that works for Tiffany Jewelers and makes their cups for them. And then there's another gentleman that I work with, and he does a lot of stuff for like the U.S. Navy and Army and stuff like that.
Wow.
But yeah, so I mean, I've tried to do some of that on my own and try it, but wands okay. The other stuff, yeah, not so much. I mean, I'm looking. Well, here, let me see. I think I got it. So here's some wands in the making.
That doesn't look like a wand at all.
They'll end up like this. They start like this.
Wow.
This is Gaboon Ebony, and then this is Purple Heart, and we've got some flame mahogany. So we got some fun pieces of wood, and get everything turned down and make it look pretty. But for a long time, I couldn't do any of that stuff, so there hasn't been any wands or anything on my website for a while, and I'm trying to get back in and get back in the groove and be able to do that kind of stuff. Basically the creativity as far as making things has been the production of like lecture items, or and the things that if people know the stuff that I produce, I only produce stuff that I would use. It's not a gimmick or a gadgetry or something like that. It's something that you can use, because as a professional, there's just too much junk. There's just too much stuff out there that it just, you don't need it, and so I tend to steer myself and my vision towards the classics, because they're classics for a reason. I might put a little twist on them, but again, it's going back to that, and my thinking and stuff behind things that have formed the way for other magicians. And when I'm always looking for something new for my shows, the first place I look is backwards. I don't go forward. And as my shows have evolved and changed from being, more of a pitch man kind of a thing, working for companies and, trying to get people in a trade show, to go to the booth and, get leads for them, or, it's become more of a, my focus is more on the entertainment value and in the adding the history of magic into the performances. So even the audiences, while they're not expecting it, are learning a little bit about the history of magic. And even in my cups and balls routine, I talk about the discovery of witchcraft and some and where it came from and how it affects the cups and balls and because it's an odd thing. You can't really explain it other than to kind of go back in time and do a history lesson for them and tell them what's happening with it. The chop cup's a little bit different, because it's a cup, and then that could be anything, so there's so many different ways that you can look about, what it is and what we're trying to do. So those are some of the ways that I like to look at the magic and see how it's going to affect people. But above all, it's not what we do. And if I had one thing that I learned when I was a young magician starting out, it's how we do it. It's the impress. It's what we leave with the audience and what they take away, in their heads and their hearts. That's the magic. It's not the tricks. It's not us. It's not like all that stuff is cool or neat or whatever. And it's not a compliment. People think they're like giving you a great compliment and say, "Oh, you fooled me." It's great. I want to fool you. Don't get me wrong. I want to devastate you. I want you to have no explanation of how I did what I did. But saying you fooled me is not the feeling that I want you to walk away with. That's if you're only feeling that you're fooled, then I didn't do my job, because my feeling that I want you to walk away with is amazement, enjoyment, puzzlement, all those things together, and getting an experience rather than, you fooled me.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not Mr. Magic Boy. All right, let me show you a trick now. Come on, let's see. I see you. It's like, and there's guys out there, and I mean, some of these guys can do amazing things. I mean, they can do some things that you would never even think possible. And I'm just like, I'm not going to learn some of these things. Not because they're not great, but I don't need that to elicit that feeling, and that's what I want. I want the people to leave, and you can get a standing ovation from a crazy finale to your show that's all hyped up and people are in a frenzy and you're throwing streamers out and everything, or you can get a standing ovation by sitting on a stool and telling a story about your grandmother and having one spotlight, one pen light on you, and having it's the feeling that you elicit in the show. And whether you're doing close-up magic, stage magic, stand-up, any type of magic, it's always a theatrical piece, and we want to put it together. I'm not just sitting there. It's like, if I even if I'm gonna out with my friends and they're at a bar or something, they say, "Hey, can you do something for me?" I'm not going to be like, "Oh, let me just show you something." I say, it's like, "Oh, yeah, I'll get to it in a little bit," And then when they're least expecting it, when that magic is going to have more impact than, "Okay, I'm ready now, show me something," that's when I'm going to, go ahead and show them something. And that's where that book Seemingly Impromptu came from, is because I want it to feel off the cuff. I don't want it to feel like it's a presentation. Now, if you're paying money for a show and you're going in to see, whoever perform, of course you expect it to be, a presentation. You expect it to have all those elements. As you and I both know, the show starts well before the show starts. The show starts, as they're walking up to the venue, when they're buying their ticket, when they're, walking through the door, as soon as they see what the setting is and the stage and what music's playing, what lights are going on, all that stuff is the show. That's part of it. So many people, they focus so much on the magic that they forget about all the little things that make it a performance, that make it engaging, that make it, fun for the audience. And, and when you're talking to the audience is different than when you're talking with the audience. When you're having a good time and you're enjoying them, and you can definitely see it, when you look at the speaker or presenter, or what, doesn't matter if it's in magic or a different field, when they get up there and they have a connection with the audience because they're making eye contact or walking, about the stage, come into the audience, all those things make you feel comfortable with that show that's happening. And, it takes it just to a next level. And then, when they leave, they're going to want to talk and tell their friends about the great experience that they had. And, that's just going to lead to more work for you.
Well, we had a criminal psychologist on last week, and he was asking about YouTube exposure and AI, just telling you how the trick's done. You can Google, linking rings, and it'll explain 10 different ways. Isn't
Right.
that magic? And I'm like, magic is so much more than that. It literally is an art form, and the deeper you go, there's more to discover. So when I got burned out at 18, I got burned out on card tricks. I didn't get burned out on magic. I was working in a magic shop, and that's all that came in. New products were all card tricks. I'm
Right.
I'm done with card tricks, man. Give me something else. And then it just hit me. There's rubber band magic. There's animal magic. There's comedy magic. There's illusions. There's escape. I'll never learn it all.
Right.
I haven't got burned out since. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, you have to come to that realization, and there's so many different great sources, and we talked about it before. So many people that have been around. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Go talk to some of these people. People. Go to a convention. Check out meet some of your heroes. That's one of the best things you can do is go and meet them face to face and talk to them. And it's as long as you're, gracious and you're there and you truly have an interest. I don't think there's a person in the world that, wouldn't want to help you. And, in magic, we're very rare that we can do that. We can meet our heroes, as a somebody that's, singing in Nashville, getting paid with the bucket being passed around. It's very rare that they can just pick up the phone and call Jelly Roll or Kenny Chesney or whatever and say, "Hey, I'd like to, get together with you for an hour or two." Yeah, that's not going to happen. But in magic, we can actually do that. We can actually go to a convention and sit down and literally be across the table from somebody that, we've admired our entire lives, and, have the chance to talk to them and find out things about them. Not even necessarily about magic, but just about them, because people are the greatest magic in the world.
Mike, I still feel like a little kid at my heart. I do. I feel like a 7-year-old kid. Even though I have kids of my own, I still feel like a kid. But I grew up loving Penn and Teller. I'm friends with Penn and Teller. We go to Teller's rehearsal. I get an email from Teller saying, "Thank you. It was so nice to have a real magician watching us and helping us." What? No, I'm a real magician, but you guys are legendary. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's how small the community is and how they're all so giving. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's pretty amazing. I mean, it's a very special thing that we have, and people that don't take advantage of it, I think they're missing the boat on it. They really should get out there. And in fact, I think we met at a convention. So that was we've known of each other, and I think it was like MAES or somewhere that we were at, and I was with Joe Reinflesh, and we were playing invisible ping pong and having a good time.
That was the best. They had a TT, and he was going. It was so awesome. So let's get to your products before we wrap everything up. You sent me a picture of like your new release product list. That's what I have right here on my phone.
Oh, okay.
Serendipity, Court, 2-Car Garage, Inside Job, Snatch, Sour Mix, Squash Reloaded, and The Big Shot. Now I know several of them. Tell me about Serendipity.
Okay, so Serendipity was my opener for about a year and a half when I was doing the Mystique Dining locations. They had them in, at the time they were in La Jolla, they were in California, Utah, anyway, all out there in the West Coast. Beautiful venues, gorgeous, like upscale, dinner shows. beautiful. So if you have a chance and you've never been to a Mystique dining, they also have the Mystique Experience now, which is not really a full dinner. The other ones, it's like a 5-course meal. It's a 2-hour, 2.5-hour experience between a 45-minute magic show and everything. So, but I was working those a lot, and that was my opener for that venue for about a year and a half, and I was using a different product to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. But as a working performer and somebody that was doing this so many times a night, I just felt that I could make it a little better. So there's a special something that allows me to make the magic work with the cards. But the plot is very simple. You go around the table or ask 10 people different, you imagine we have an imaginary deck of cards. You go through, and through a process of elimination, they come down to a single card. On the table, before you start, there's a little bag. You open up the bag, and inside you lift it and you rattle it. They hear something banging around, and you say, well, wouldn't that be weird if inside this box I folded up the exact playing card that you just created from your minds? And then you open it up, you take it out, take the card. You can show the box empty. There's nothing in the box. Put it down, open it up, turn the card around, and it is, in fact, the one card that the audience collectively created. And it was just a good way to get everybody on the same page. It could be a closer just as easy as it could be an opener. But I used it as an opener because, to me, you're at a venue where nobody knows each other. Okay, it held like 35 to 40 people. Everybody comes either as a couple or maybe a party of 4. But all these people, it's kind of like a wedding atmosphere. They're there to have a good time, but they don't know anybody, and they're all sitting there. And so I wanted to get them talking. I wanted to get some banter going and get people and there's lines and jokes and everything along the way throughout the questioning, that makes it super fun. And if you have a little kid, that the parents are taking out to this fancy place for dinner or whatever, because I think they did have an age limit, but I think it was like maybe like 13 or 14, I don't know. But they would come in and you'd ask them a question and be like, oh, it's like, what's your favorite color? Is it red or is it black or is it neither? Or do you have a boyfriend or are you driving yet? All those, fun questions that, it, watching when you get a kid laughing and having a good time, man, I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter. The rest of the room just follows right in. You can get an adult laughing, having a good time, and the other ones are still like, I'm at a magic lecture. I'm going to cross my arms for a bit, check it out. But when you get a kid laughing and having a good time up on stage or in front of people, I'll tell you what, there is nothing better than that for your show, because it takes everybody and just their hearts melt. They just go right in for it. And at that point, they're like putty. You can do anything at that point. I don't care. Doesn't matter.
So serendipity is a card to impossible location. It's serendipitous because that card was there the whole time. That's the plot of the trick.
That's the plot. So it's a very classic plot. Like I said before, everything that I do is classically oriented, but I tend to put my own twists and turns on it, just to make it a little bit, whether it's a different type of a box, a different type of cards, a different method to get them. All that stuff is not seen by the audience, but to magicians, they can appreciate the differences in what I bring to the table, and also knowing that they're getting quality products that are going to last. You don't want something that you're spending a decent amount of money on, and then a week later or whatever, thing falls apart. But if it should, I stand behind my products, so I just get them back to them anyway.
Well, a video you sent me was Inside Job, which is a borrowed bill to a Sharpie marker.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just reappears in the Sharpie marker. Amazing, awesome trick. I love it.
Yep. So that was a trick that it was funny because that's in that book, Seemingly Impromptu. It's the last trick in the book.
Okay.
When I had the book proofread and when I gave it to so I'm trying to think, Lifesavers. Trying to think of, I'm drawing a blank. Oh my goodness. You wrote the introduction for the book.
It's not Richard, it's Michael.
Michael.
No, what is his name? I know it too. I know. He talked about it in the last podcast. It's not Hoffman. What is it? It's
No.
shoot. Go
Well,
ahead. We'll think of it in a second. It'll come to me.
well, in any event, it wasn't in there at the beginning, right? It wasn't there, and I was just like, sent the book out, had it proofread, had everybody check it, and then I published the book, and then miraculously that routine appeared in the back of it. And he's like, "This wasn't in here when you printed this, or when I saw it." I was like, "No, it wasn't." I was kind of holding back, but then I decided that I really didn't want to. I really want to share my magic and get it out there. And honestly, I felt that not many people were going to make it. I really thought that it was one of those things. Most people, as soon as they see arts and crafts, they just, shut the book and don't want to go and do anything. And I can appreciate that. That's fine. Some people just aren't handy with tools and they can't, make things or whatever. And so, but I wanted it there. I wanted it so people, had the knowledge, knew how it worked, whatever, did the whole thing. So it was in there, did all that, and then I was doing a lecture tour and I'd perform it, and people were like, "Well, do you have them to sell?" And I was like, "No." It's like,
They don't want to
no,
make it.
no, it's in the book. I teach you literally how to make it. It's everything's clearly written there. You just got to make it yourself. And so the one guy at one of my lectures, he came up to me and he says, "I really like that." He's like, "How about if I think I can help you make those and make them a little faster for you so you can actually put them out there." I said, "That would be really nice if you can help me with this." Because I was like, I can make them, but I just didn't have an expedient way to go through and go about. So he helped me out and collaborated with that. And, we were able to finally get that out. So while it's been out for a while in terms of being published, it hasn't been, very long in terms of being an actual product that people can just, buy all together, put together right off the shelf. And, you get your video download with it, with the explanation and everything and all that stuff. And so that way you can just go out and start performing it.
Michael Weber.
Michael Weber, there you go. I should know that. I should know that.
It was on the tip of my tongue too. I said Michael, but I couldn't put a last name with it.
In fact, I have his card peek in his wallet. Oh my goodness, so good. I was looking at that and playing with it today. So here's the problem. Today, I was preparing for this, getting ready to talk to you guys because I love talking with you, but I'm also like kind of, trying to organize and clean up some stuff. Well, as any magician knows, organizing magic turns into, man, I forgot about this thing. I cannot tell you how many things that I played with today that I haven't touched in eons. And I was like, this is so good. I was like, why don't I use this? And then I was like,
they clean their room, end up playing with their toys. We end up playing with it. That's exactly the same. And that artist mentality you were thinking about earlier, you're writing a book, but you're making wands and you're doing this and you're thinking about other routines and it's just a mind. My little girl paints, she sculpts, she literally has 5 projects going on at the same time because it just crafts. She's crocheting now, but it's like she wants to do this, but I also have inspiration to do this right now, so that's just put aside. So the same thing with your books and your lecture notes and your other book and your wands and this.
Well, that's why people think it takes a while because, it's not that I wouldn't say it's a sidetrack thing because sidetrack is something that you would intentionally go and do. Like these are, or unintentionally go and do. I intentionally, went and said, let me take this out and go through it. I could have just pushed it aside and put it in the box and cleaned up like I was, started to, but there was intent there because I also was thinking in my mind, I had an idea. And if I have an idea, I need to be able to go right then and there to see if it's feasible, if it has proof of concept, if it can actually work, or is it a pipe dream, right? And I can honestly say that everything that I put out can be done and has been done professionally by myself for real world people. There is nothing that I've ever written about or done that is just something. There's some books that I've read and I'm like, there's no way this person ever performed this. Like, there's just no chance. I'm like, it's not going to work. I have enough experience to know that this is just something that, yeah, it sounds good and whatever, but it's just not really going to work in the real world. So, that's one of the things I pride myself on. And, I think that that's one of the things that when people get something and one of, my products, they know that a lot of thought and research went into these things. These aren't something that were just, thought about one day and then 2 days later, they had AI write a book and it came out. Some of these books that I've been working on have been in the works now for 6, 7, 8 years. I mean, they don't just, flow out of the pen and onto the paper. And by the way, yeah, I still do that because all my notes start as that before I go to a computer and start typing them in. Just because I can shorthand writing and skip things and not worry. I used to take a lot of speed reading classes in high school and stuff. And, I skip the little words and I only write down the big words and the important stuff because all the filler words like a, and, they don't mean anything. So I just blow right over those, so if you want to go through, when you're writing, yeah, you have to have those in. Otherwise the sentence doesn't make sense. But for your own benefit, if you look at my notebooks and stuff, for the average person, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. I got lines here and circles and this and that, and then I was looking at one today. It said, "Oh, remember the thing that I saw at Wally World?" And I was just like, that was literally my note. I was just like, because I don't know what it's called, but I do remember what it looks like. So that's what I. So I'm just like, all right, I just remembered what it was.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, regular folks can check you out at michaelkaminskas.com, but magicians can go to mkcups.com and get all your products. I mean, we didn't even talk about the squash reloaded, or the big shot, corked. We didn't talk about any of those, snatch, but you have so many others. Your books, all of that's on your website. Supplies are limited for some of those things, but support this guy. Yes. He's got health issues and he's awesome, and all this stuff's already been worked. It's top quality stuff and it's good stuff. You're the best, Mike. I wish you all the best, man.
You guys are fantastic. So I love chatting with you, and I certainly hope that we get to see each other in person here, hopefully soon, because it's been way too long. I can't believe it's been so long since we talked last time, to be honest. I literally looked and I was like, has it been that long since we did the interview? I was like, wow. I was like, that's crazy.
I tried to get you back on for Bitcoin, but you wouldn't answer me.
Well, that would have been the shortest and most boring thing that anybody would ever want to sit through. They wouldn't have to worry about it.
Into, man. I love Mike. Let's support him. Let's talk about it. I don't know anything about Bitcoin, so I'm going to learn.
Well, if you want to know somebody who does, Christian Schenk knows a lot about Bitcoin because he started to try and fill me in at 4F one year. After because that was the big joke at 4F. I went there and everybody's like, "How's Bitcoin going? How's Bitcoin going?" And I was just like, "That's not me." And they're like, "Yeah, we know." I'm like, "Okay." I said, "So tell Facebook and let them know that it's not me, and let's see if we can get this thing, back in my hands." Well, that never happened. So I honestly, I just gave up. It wasn't to the point where I'm like, all right, I'm going to keep trying to fight it and whatever. And I was at them, I'm slowly getting back to, having a lot of my friends, but it's just like that trust thing, where it feels like something like you're violated in a way that you can't do anything about, and it's just a horrible, horrible feeling. I've had it happen with banking as well as many other people have, where, I got a $2,000 charge for some sports betting app, that they took it out of my bank account. And I'm like, obviously they swiped my numbers when I was on my lecture tour because they said it came from, a gas station at whatever, and I was just like, oh, okay. So, so I immediately, canceled that card and got another one. But I mean, my bank was really good about saying, okay, we'll put the money back in your account right now, but it's going to take us a month to go through our stuff to make sure that you didn't make this purchase. I'm like, I'm like, I know it wasn't me because I don't gamble. It's very simple. It's like, I was like, it's one of those things that I do not do. I think the most I've ever gambled is like $25, in a slot machine one time. I don't see the point of it. I get the high when you win, but you lose way more than you win. And I just don't, and half of the magic conventions, as you know, are held in casinos and stuff. So, you're around it all the time. And, the biggest one out there, is Magiclife. And, it's right in the Orleans casino and it's all over the place. But you'll find me in the food court hanging out with people.
I got a weird feeling about gambling. When I win it, I don't feel like it's my money. So I don't.
Well, it's not. It's a loan. It's just they're
Yes.
just let you, play with their money a little longer.
So like we'll bet $100 on the football game for the Super Bowl because that's the only game I watch. And if I win, I gave it to her, or we bought matching robes.
Yeah.
I just throw the money away. And then when I lose, I just feel like an idiot because I don't know what I'm doing anyway. I don't watch football. Why do I care?
Yeah.
But it makes it a little bit more fun, but that's it.
It does make it more fun. I mean, I used to do the like fantasy football and stuff like that. That was fun because it gave me a reason to watch all the different games and stuff. And I mean, so in that, and it's not a lot of money. I think it was like $25 for the whole season, to play or something. So it really wasn't a big deal. But I see people that literally sit at a table and push in a stack of coins or chips, and I'm like that's like more than I made in like the last 15 years. I'm like, and they make one spin of the throw of the dice, and boom, there it goes, and they're walking away, and they don't even get mad. People in casinos really don't get mad. They must get mad at home because I don't see them get mad when they're there. They just happily throw their money away and walk out the door.
Yeah, I don't get it. Yeah, we go to Vegas, and people are like, "You going back to Vegas?" Yeah, but we don't. $20 is like
we didn't even
3 times ago.
Yeah, we didn't even do anything.
I know, but the shows, I love going to the shows in Vegas, but man, they're so expensive these days.
Yeah.
That's where we lost all our money, were show tickets.
Right?
Well, and then supporting friends, right?
Yeah. Right.
So like we went to see Nathan Burton. I'm not just going to buy a ticket. I'm going to buy a VIP ticket because it's only 4 seats. And guess what? It's sold. So I wanted to support him. And we got front row seats. But I want to support him.
And you get the merch and everything else. And yeah.
Well, see, when you add that in, it doesn't matter. It's about doing it for your friends anyway.
Yeah.
Being there to support them and stuff. I mean, that's
cheer the loudest. And cheer the loudest. That's what we're supposed to do for our friends. Yeah.
That's right. People don't understand that. And, people don't, as in general rule, less than like 2% of the population has ever seen live magic. It's a very, very small number. There's a lot of people now that are exposed to magic because of the internet and Penn and Teller and all these shows that they can see or they can watch through their reels or whatever. So they're seeing more magic, but live magic still is something that really is just an oddity. People really don't get to experience it, and they never forget it if they're there and it's done properly. I mean, seeing live magic, there's nothing like it in my eyes. I mean, it's one of those experiences that it's where you take a football game and it's like, yes, the experience of being at the games and stuff is amazing, but if I'm truly somebody who wants to watch the game, I can see it better on television than I can than being at the game in the stadium. Where with the arts, whether it be an orchestra or whatever, when you're in a theater and you want to see it, and it's about the entire experience that you're getting as well as the show. And being able to experience, because when something happens to you, say God comes up to your table and he's doing close-up magic at the restaurant, and the phone levitates, or something disappears in a flash or whatever. That's not AI. That's not something that they can explain with all these other things. So when you're watching it on television or through your phone or whatever, there's always an explanation. There's always, but they could have done this. They could have, and that was the battle with Zoom shows, right? It was just like, it's like, well, they could have gone out of camera or out of frame. They could use technology to help them. And I'm not going to lie, we did it all. Absolutely. A resourceful performer is going to use all methods available to them to bring upon the desired effect. So if that means that we have to have somebody laying under the table handing us stuff, yeah, I'm going to do it, man. I don't care. That's okay. It's just a matter of trying to get everything to get the end result, to leave people with that feeling, and especially when that was such a trying time for many people. It was the beauty that came through. I mean, I remember watching comedy shows, on Zoom. It was crazy. They'd have a comedian on, and we'd all sit there and just watch the guy, the lady just, do the show through the phone. But it was the closest thing that we could get at the time to live entertainment, and
Right.
and people that crave that, they don't really know they crave it until they've seen it for the first time, and then that's when they get hooked. So the more people that we can get to attend live magic, the better off it's going to be for everybody. And when people say, "Oh, don't you worry that there's so many magicians, or this guy does this guy does that," no, I'm not worried about it at all. In fact, I want everybody to do magic. I'll teach you a magic trick if you want to learn something. I'm happy to show you.
Dude, you're the best. Thank you. That's been an hour, man. MichaelKaminskas.com, MKCups.com. Check this guy out. Support him. He is a good guy. He knows what he's talking about. And heck, he said in the last podcast, reach out to him. If you got a question, you answer all of them. Just don't find him on Facebook, because he's not going to answer that question.
Or at least use the right account.
There you go. Thanks so much, Mike. You're the best, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thing left we have to say is see you next week.
Check us out online at wesisley.com and patreon.com/Wes_Isley for behind-the-scenes videos, blooper videos, never-before-seen footage, discounts on merchandise, magic trick tutorials, and more. That's Wes Iseli, spelled WESISELI.